one of the presenters, time to take you on board. And again, we apologize very much for the short delay. We realize that some of you came from very far. And chances are you're a bit hungry, but we shall see what we can do in due time as we go for our break. Let me present to you one of our presenters, Phyllis, so that she can take it up from there. Anybody who has anything, you can ask any person who is wearing a green t-shirt from the Starteam group.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you are all well. As Steve has mentioned, my name is Phyllis Ganga, and we are here together, all of us today. And I would like to introduce myself as a student in coffee, and I have been a student for quite some time back. Because I was born in a coffee growing region. And I have found myself working in coffee for probably maybe over 40 years now. If I would include my years of when I was growing up and picking coffee as a young person. I would like to welcome you and take this opportunity to thank you because you have taken the time to travel from Nyeri, from Meru, and from Embu, and even from Nairobi to come and sit today as we discuss matters coffee. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank the Starteam management, and especially because if I may make this comment, in my years when I have been in coffee, I have found that most of the people who are in the coffee business try to keep the knowledge to themselves. They try to keep the business to themselves. So nobody really knows when you're out there the potential that is there in coffee. So Starteam, we are very grateful because you are opening this opportunity and giving this chance to many, many young people even to learn about coffee. Our first presenter this morning will be Sami Washeni, and maybe he will introduce himself. He will take all of us through the, I would say, the basics of coffee. Today we have a very short day. What we have is something that we could discuss even for 4 or 5 days, but we have tried to make it as simple as possible so that we can touch issues that will make all of us live here, thinking of where can I plug in? Is there something that I can do in coffee? So, Sami Washeni, karibu sana.
Right, good morning. I'm not used to using a microphone. So sometimes I tend to keep it aside. I don't know if I'm loud enough. I prefer using my mouth. Have you tried that?
Can you all hear me? I think I'm loud enough. I don't think I need that for today. It makes me feel like tuko kwa mkutano ya siasa. Na siasa ni kama naachana nazo kwa wakati huu. So my name is Sami Washeni, as you can see, and I work for a company called Crowd Farm Africa Limited. And we sell coffee. Without complicating English, we sell coffee. So we deal with coffee farmers, we deal with millers, we deal with liquorers, tea traders, exporters, importers, all that whole value chain. So I'm very happy to be invited to this sitting by the Kikawa and Starteam. Thank you very much. I have not had this kind of forum happen. Na naendanga mikutano zingine tunasemanga high level delegations, sijui ministry, sijui nani wa policy, sijui what. So the conversation around coffee inakaanga mahali kwa zile mikutano tunasemanga Serena, so Starteam, thank you very much. I think we are now trickling down because hizo majina saa hizi zinatumika kwa maneno mengi sana ya siasa. But I think this is a very good starting point for you. That we can have young people discussing coffee in Kenya in a forum like this. And haujasema msiwaambie 1, 2, 3. You're like, tell them whatever that is available. So I know we have had a lot of stories and hearsays and maneno mingi ya kahawa. Kahawa inakuanga na siasa mingi sana, si ndio tunasemanga? And because of that, we have an assumption on so many things around coffee. And either by design or by default, it was designed that way. But I'm happy like we have this conversation today, and maybe we can try to demystify coffee and have people discussing it. Oh, I can see some people that I know in this room. I didn't know I know anyone. I don't have the only one. Now I have to watch my language. So that aside, I am taking you through a very simple presentation. And we just want to understand what is a value chain and what does the coffee value chain entail. Then from there, we can start trying to see where do we plug in as young people. So before I do that, I want to understand who are these people. Yakina nani wako kwa hii nyumba? And I don't want to ask the Starteam or Felix. I want it to come from you. So who are we? Nani nataka kutuambia yeye amekuja hapa kwa njia gani, ametoka wapi, na how did you end up here? Anybody? If you volunteer yourself, you will appreciate. Young man, nataka kutuambia umepata hadi hapa. Why are you here? So that we can understand why we are here, right? Sijui kama tunapelekana. Pengine mimi niliona watu wakienda nikaenda, ama pengine mimi ni producer wa kahawa. So I just want to have an idea of who are these people. And because you didn't volunteer yourself, I can't volunteer. Let us know. Tunaweza kupea mic kama sauti yako.
Kanisa sifiwe. Kwa majina naitwa Tizere Oliver kutoka Morogoro. Nilikutana na papa mwingine mkiuza kahawa, akanieleza mambo ya kahawa, tukapeana namba, ndio maana niko hapa.
Thank you very much. Tumpige makofi. So what does he do in the coffee value chain? He sells coffee. So he's a coffee trader. Now because you're not volunteering, good. Now we have people volunteering.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Fiona Kendi. I'm a lawyer and a KSL student, and also a coffee farmer. So in the chain, I am a farmer, but I'd love to know more from what happens when I sell my coffee. I'm from Meru County.
Fiona Kendi, a farmer. All right, thank you. Tumpigie makofi. You can pass it on. Who else wants to tell us how they ended up here? We have, okay, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Carol. I'm a aspiring coffee maker. I'm so glad to meet Madam Phyllis once again. Sam is my colleague, tunajua kidogo. I came to learn about this forum from my dad. And the reason as to why I'm here today, because I want to try to learn more about coffee. Because we say that each and every day, it's a learning day.
Thank you very much. another young man here. I want to call us young people that think we are all there. Yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm Manasseh from Kiambu County, raised here by fellow farmer. I'm food technologist by profession. I want to know what happens in the value chain process.
Okay, thank you very much. You want to get someone from this corner? Here we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Edith from Nakuru. I got motivated by my dad. He's a coffee farmer, and I'm aspiring to be a coffee barista. What I want to learn more is I want to upgrade coffee to another level.
You want to be a barista, eh? And you got from a coffee farming family.
Yes,
Angalia kama unataka kusema.
YouTube na Facebook. Nimeweka Facebook na YouTube.
I want to hear from this corner here, and then we can wrap that part up. At least I have an idea who we are here. Let me give it to you because you're not aware.
Hello everyone. I'm Hannah from Nairobi. I'm here because I want to learn more about coffee. Yes.
No, you didn't tell us how you ended up here.
Oh, how I ended up here. I'm here courtesy of my friend who's working in the Starteam, and he invited me, so I was like, I want to know more about this.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Good jamaa ameniangazia sitamwona.
Good morning. I'm Antonio Motero, a coffee farmer. I'm from Delhi, and I've got a team of 31 people, most of them coffee farmers, and a few who are aspiring to become farmers.
There's a group of young coffee farmers from here. Yes. To begin a coffee. 21 coffee farmers from here. I didn't know you were here. Now I see you. I think you're right. I can see some people that I know here. I had not seen these people. Now I can start seeing the faces.
My name is Evernon, and I actually come from a coffee growing area in the parent coffee growers. So I learned this forum from them.
Okay. All right. You look like you want to.
Good morning. I'm Francis Overo from Nakuru. I'm a coffee enthusiast. Napenda kunywa kahawa. I'm here to learn more about it.
So we have farmers, we have baristas, we have lawyers, we have laborers, we have farmers, we have consumers. Who else do we have? We have sellers. There was another one that was very interesting. What was that? Not technologists. Who was that? IT. So IT and coffee, yeah? So we try to see how do they even connect. So we will make it make sense before the end of the day. Before I close this part, there's a lady who looks like she's in love with me here. And go ahead. Waambie uko na unanipenda.
I'm a farmer. Nampenda. Tulikuja huku tulikuwa tumeitwa na karaoke. Mimi ni muuzaji wa kahawa ile tamu. Hiyo kahawa karaoke anaendaga
So you sell coffee in which form?
Napika, then nauzia watu. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. She's a producer and a seller. And she's in love with me. Don't forget that. Okay, so I think we can wrap that part up, but I will keep it open. If anything comes up, hapa sio shule. Tunachapa siasa ya kahawa, lakini sasa badala iwe siasa, ndio wanasemanga ni tunaenda mkutano ya siasa ya kahawa. Hii tuseme tumeenda kujadiliana biashara ya kahawa, sio siasa. Watu wale wanachezanga siasa wachezee huko. We are just trying to understand what is coffee and what opportunities are there and how can we take advantage of those opportunities. And it's very interesting. For example, Phyllis, I know I have known Phyllis for quite a long time. She actually introduced the first time I thought about coffee. Like I didn't know what coffee is. I have not been brought up in a coffee growing zone. Mimi nilikuwa naona kahawa nikiwa kwa shosho. Like when you go visiting, but I have not been brought up in a coffee growing zone. So I had no idea of what coffee is. Of course I had, ile tu ya kuiona kwa mti. Kienda kwa shosho unaona ikiwa inavunwa, but I couldn't pick, I couldn't do nothing around coffee. Until many years later, and I am not even I don't have an agricultural background. My background is in a completely different field. But when I got into the coffee business, I have a colleague we work with. He's not around. Actually, ni alifanya nikuwe hapa leo. They talked with Phyllis, akamwambia ongeana sana. So nikamwambia, I want us to start selling coffee. And he was like, kuna vitu unavuta zinakuharibikia. So nikamuuliza kwa nini? Akaniambia, wewe unajua kahawa ni nini? So I was like, why can't we sell coffee? So we started a company, and I told him we will be exporting coffee. And he had more experience in agricultural value chains than me. My background was in health. So nilikuwa na deal na community health issues. So unasikia community health issues and kuuza kahawa. Yeye alikuwa anafanya na wakulima, he's a consultant in agribusiness issues and all that. So vile nilimwambia tutaanza kuuza kahawa na tutatengeneza kampuni na wewe. He didn't understand what I was talking about. Because he was like, where do we even start? So I kept pushing him. And then he was like, I want you to meet someone who may have a better understanding of the coffee market than I do. But I had someone who wanted coffee. So the conversation was, I have a client, na anataka kahawa na ako ng'ambo. So we must figure out how we get the coffee from Kenya to the destination. So the first person I was taken to on a Christmas day afternoon without an appointment was to her. Kwao Geshagi nyumbani, not in the office. Tulimvamia kwao nyumbani, tulikuwa tunajua ni Christmas, lazima atakuwa nyumbani. So we just appeared. Najuana na huyo rafiki yangu, so I was introduced to Phyllis. And the first conversation was like, of course, not very, I don't want to call it mature. Ucheli, ongea kitu hujui, unasema nini? Tuseme, unaenda India, unaulizwa swali, hujui kujibu. Because I didn't know what exactly I want. But Phyllis was very kind. She gave us a few tips. She also thought we were not serious. It looked like more of a joke than. Alifikiria tumekosa mahali ya kwenda Christmas tukapika stove. Ili tuone kama tutatoa lunch. And that conversation continued. Unfortunately, by the time that conversation was materializing, I had left for a while. Nilikuwa nimeondoka nchini kidogo. So sasa yule jamaa alikuwa huko, lazima ninge-introduce kwa huyu jamaa mwingine. It was a whole mix up of issues. But finally, we were able to export our first time. So every time I talk about coffee, Phyllis is always in my head because that is where it all started. Actually, the first consignment me had handled. Like we didn't know nothing. So I'm saying that not to praise Phyllis very much, but to demystify that anyone can be involved in this value chain. And as much as it has its own political angles and all that, it is time we started having a conversation around coffee as young Kenyans. And there's a quote that, unfortunately, my lab. Are you online? Are you able to go online here?
On my email?
No, it won't work because you can't tap on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
Yeah.
Unless if we remove this.
No, forget about it. There was
A few days ago, someone wrote, I can read it from my phone. He's actually a UK citizen. He was here just before elections, and he had stayed here for a couple of days. He's a white male. I'm giving a description of the character in the script. He's a male, white, British, and he was visiting Kenya for whatever reason. He didn't say why he was in Kenya. That is not the main concern I have, but this is what he tweeted just before elections. I think, no, actually on 15th of August, which was on 9. So he tweeted this on 11, and he said, "I am in Kenya and can't wait to go back to the UK and drink proper Kenyan coffee." I repeat. So you understand the character, eh? He's a white male, British, looks like he would be 30, maybe 33, and his name is Chris Cooper, so that we can have the persona. And he tweeted on that day, "I am in Kenya and can't wait to go back to the UK and drink proper Kenyan coffee." What does that make you think?
Well, I think there's a fundamental problem with the value chain in terms of what we churn out to the markets out there that we serve and what we consume as Kenyans. I think there's a problem.
He says there's a fundamental problem in that value chain based on that guy's tweet. Madam, what do you think about that tweet? It was a tweet.
I'm thinking, okay, because this good coffee is coming from Kenya, so why can't he take it from Kenya? And why does it need to go out there to UK so that he can take it from there? If it's good from Kenya, okay, why not the final product? Okay.
So why do you think he was not able to answer that question?
So now, I think his answer, what he has said, there is a challenge somewhere with our value chain, with our value addition. Yes. Yeah.
Who wants to contribute to that discussion? Here we go.
My opinion is that from the tweet, the guy is actually attesting to Kenya having good coffee. So we can agree that in terms of production, we actually produce among the best coffee in the world, but we stop at producing. After that, we don't have facilities to ensure that we process it in a better way. From online and people talking, I've heard that in Kenya, we actually produce the best coffee, but we take low quality coffee. The good coffee we have to import it, but that is the coffee actually exported. But then after it was processed, we import so that you can drink good coffee. So the problem here is the value chain. There's no value addition facilities in Kenya.
Okay. So she says this guy, number one, appreciates Kenyan coffee is very good, and number two, appreciates he cannot get good Kenyan coffee from here. He can only go back to the UK for him to enjoy good Kenyan coffee. It's a very ridiculous way of starting to challenging our thinking. What do you think about that?
Yeah, kama tunaweza kupigia.
Alafu tumwambie nini ama tumuulize nini?
Tumwambie kuna mabadiliko sasa hivi analyze about the value chain and we are going to see.
Anybody else wants to contribute to that conversation around that UK guy? He's Cooper.
I agree with what they are saying. And I also want to point out that we probably take the lowest of grades for ourselves and give the best to the rest of the world. So we don't actually appreciate the fact that we make good coffee. We take the cheapest ones and the ones that we can easily afford and have it for ourselves instead of the rest.
So I decided to include that in my conversation because it helps us start thinking critically about what we are about to discuss today. And sometimes questioning a system, you don't necessarily have to have answers, but that is the beginning of finding solutions. Once you start questioning, like I was like, what do you mean? Umekaa huku siku ngapi? Karibu unaanza kuuliza maswali ya. Kwani that means this guy was drinking coffee around Nairobi ya. Kwani alikuwa anakunywa kahawa wapi? Ni hoteli gani alikuwa anaenda? Almost you feel like you can have a conversation with ulikunywa kahawa wapi na wapi na wapi. Ili tujue kwani hawa wanauza kahawa gani? And you can, ikifika hapo you can actually start imagining ni wapi alikuwa anakunywa kahawa. Being a white and a foreigner in Kenya, in Nairobi, you can almost start guessing where he's drinking his coffee from. And he's able to say that. So you're like, okay. It's a whole complex scenario that helps us, that triggers our thinking around this whole conversation around coffee. So I want us to look at the coffee value chain. We will get back and forth through that. Phyllis, you can take us to the next slide. And this is simply the academic definition of what a value chain is. The process or activities of which a company adds value to a product, including production, marketing, and the provision of after-sales services. So kuna produce, kuna marketing, na kuna consumption and follow-up. So, kwa kahawa, kuna ukulima, that is level 1, sindio? Production. Then there is level 2, which is about processing, and level 3, consumption. Without even complicating it. Production, processing, and consumption. That is the whole coffee value chain. But then I want us to break it down and look at it in better details. And then we can now start looking at what opportunities are there in every stage of that value chain. So Phyllis, can go to the next one. So I have captured the whole value chain, trying to be more, or to break it even further. But basically it will still sum up to the 3 steps we have said. So there is the first step, of course, is seed propagation. Kwa sababu ni mti, ni mmea. So it has to start from somewhere. So there is the level 1, which is seed propagation. Unfortunately, I don't know how many people wamefanya degree in agriculture or something close to that. Which university was that? Can you tell us your background? What does your degree entail?
My background entails about the technology aspect of it and the quality assurance aspect from the coffee berries up to storage and distribution. Yeah.
Can you help us propagate seedlings based on your background?
Seedlings, from my background, we have 2 varieties. From what we know, we have the Robusta and the Arabica. And depending on the climate of each region, we grow different varieties. So depending on each farmer's choice and preference, they do the seedling of their choice. Yeah.
So can you be able to propagate a seed?
No, you just buy from a grown supplier.
Why can't you be able to propagate a seed?
No, you can, because some of them which grow, they are not the required variety or the required resistance.
It's not answering the question. Nani mwingine anafanya agriculture at whichever level? Why can't you help us propagate seeds?
Good morning. Richard. I have done a diploma I am Richard Kilumo. I have done a diploma in horticulture. So, about seed propagation involves you can propagate using seeds where you can plant, let me dwell on the variety.
Yes.
So it's about the varieties. There are several varieties. Kuna SL34, SL37, K27. There is Whale and there but yeah. So propagating grain is all about dog working, where you use an X that is 7 stems which are already grown. It is already set up. So it's like grafting in simple words. Yeah.
All right. So nilikuwa nataka tujisumbue na kizungumgumu for nothing. Because what is seed propagation? Kuzalisha mbegu. So we have one seedling, we want to make them 2, 3, 4, 1,000, 10,000 seedlings. All right? Starting from 1. And ensuring that we have the same quality along that propagation process. That's the production process. I know it is scientific. I have no doubt in that. It is very scientific. It's a very complicated process. But is it doable? Kenya has only one institute that does seed propagation. Nobody else does seed propagation. Not unless kuna Kenya University. Coffee Research Institute. I'm not saying we do seed propagation. I'm only saying we need to start questioning. Like I use a different example. Tomatoes. Where do we buy our seedlings from? Tanzania. I understand most of them come from Netherlands. And zingine zinatoka Israel. Then a friend of mine, ako hapa Nakuru, one of watu wa Nakuru, mnajua jamaa anaitwa Sam. His company is, I'm forgetting his name. He has a seed propagation center in Nakuru for tomatoes and other vegetables. He went to Netherlands. He's an agricultural technologist, and he looked at what exactly they do in seed propagation, and was like, why can't we do this instead? Did not forget science. He bought some seedlings from Netherlands, came and set up a company in Nakuru, and he started propagating seeds. Initially, there were a lot of gaps, a lot of challenges in terms of certifications and everything, because of course it's a very sensitive area. But he was like, I am not doing anything else, I am a seed propagator. I will push through until there is no way we can propagate seeds from Netherlands, so we can do it. Yeah. So I'm not saying it is an easy process, it is complicated, I appreciate that part. But I think we need to start questioning, and this is the I say this not to discredit our education system, but you realize our education system is more of doing rather than questioning. I would suggest we start questioning rather than doing, so that you can start answering questions that have no answers, like why can't we propagate seeds? I'm not saying Coffee Research Institute is not doing well. I think they're doing very well. But what is the harm of having 2 or 3 or 5? This is is it a government or a parastatal? It's a parastatal. So basically it's a government institute. It's a parastatal. Why can't we have a private one competing with? I think competition is good as far as I'm concerned. Saizi naona kuna watu wanasema wanataka mbegu. How long do we have to wait?
Sometimes you have to wait for months and months, or even a year.
Or even a year.
To be able to get this.
Somebody asked me for seedlings in February. Mpaka sasa hajapanda. Sababu haziko. Zile ziko booked. And I'm like, why? If this guy was propagating seeds, kama nini hamna ataenda kwa mwingine. So that is where we start. That is an area, I know it is very complicated, very complex, may need a lot of research and resources, but that is where we start, seed propagation. If you have your uncles who are very rich, you can tell them to support you to start a seed propagation company. So we go to the next one, which is easier. And another thing is, I think we like the easier parts, we don't like the tough parts. So zile ngumu tunaondokea tunaenda kwa zile easy. So we go to the second one. After we have seed propagation, that is a whole activity on the tab, we go to production. Production is the kulima. You're a farmer and a barista. So this is zile mashamba tuko nazo sasa hapa ndio watu wengi wako wakulima wa kahawa. And in Kenya we have two forms of coffee farmers. We have smallholder farmers who are about 700,000 and make the majority of the producers, and then we have what we call estate farmers. Smallholder farmers are people below who farm coffee on less than 5 acres, and they do not have a pulping station. Ile kitu tunaitaka factories, ndio unajua gethei. So they have to kuungana watu kadhaa ili watengeneze ka pulping station kao, so that they can be able to process their coffee, and that is how we end up with the coffee cooperatives. So majority of the coffee in Kenya is produced by smallholder farmers, who now then form the cooperatives that we know. And then of course we have coffee estates. So one of the requirements for being an estate farmer is you have to have at least 5 acres and above, so that you can get a license for having a pulping station for shamba yako. So unaweza jisaidia kahawa. Then primary processing. That is the level 3 of the value chain. Primary processing inamaanisha nini? Kuna mtu nimeona ameniangalia ni kama anataka kuongea sana. How did I lose that face? There was someone who was looking at me like anataka kusema sana. What is primary processing in coffee?
My name is Sarit.
Simama kidogo watu wakuone. You love and marry.
My name is Angada from Embu County. What I understand by wet processing is wet washed. It's you take the coffee from the farm, take it to the factory, run it with water to the pulping machine. It's processed, taken to fermentation tank 1 and 2. Then the second process after fermentation, you take it to the washing channel. After washing channel, you take it to the dryer tables, one maybe for a day or 2. Then the last dryer table, where you take it to the dryer table. That's all I understand by it.
She's an expert, you know. So people are saying, how many of us know a factory? It's a pulping station, but that's a factory. Nani ni wangapi tunajua factory ya kahawa inakaa? Or have an idea of how a coffee factory looks like? At some point, I know we will have. No, we don't have that. Now we will get photos. Some things come afterwards, and you realize, oh, okay, that is an interesting one. Thank you very much. You said you're Kendi? Gada from Embu County. I think you work in a factory. Yeah. Aha. That's nice. So she's basically telling us what happens in primary processing of coffee. So in this primary processing, kuna sasa kazi hizo opportunities kama hizo kadhaa anafanya. You work for which factory? Mount Kenya Organic Coffee Limited. It's a private, cooperative. Okay, thank you very much. So in primary processing, it's a matter of kutoa kahawa from its natural form, ile tunaitanga cherry, venye imevunwa, si ndio? Tuanze process ya kuifanya drinkable coffee. But then we are just starting. So the first thing you do at that level is, of course, there are 2 ways of primary processing. Kuna kahawa ambayo tunaita wet washed, which is she was talking about, na kuna kahawa tunaita natural. So for wet wash process is whereby you remove the skin of the coffee, of the cherry, na ndio tunaita pulping. Tunatoa kile kingozi kia red, alafu tunaipeleka kwa na hiyo ndio anatumia kitu anaita pulping hopper. Anaweka kwa hopper, alafu inaenda kwa pulping station, alafu anaipeleka kwa maji. There's that whole process ya kutoa hiyo ngozi. Na in the process kuna vitu tunaitanga sugars and all that. That is why she is
washing. Huyu tutamuita shule. Ile siku nyingine tutakuwa hapa atufunze sasa maneno ya processing. So that is process number 1. And we end up having what we call parchment. Parchment. Na kahawa inakuanga na nini ngapi ndani kwa kawaida? Inakuanga na nini ngapi ndani? What do you call them? Seeds. Is coffee a fruit or a berry? Or a bean? It's a bean. Is it a fruit? Is it a berry? Is it a it's a bean. Phyllis, is it a fruit or a bean?
It's
or a berry?
the cherry. It is a berry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a berry.
So
I think it depends on the stage.
no, I mean what we produce as coffee. Yeah, at the farm.
At the farm, it's a berry.
It's a berry.
And a berry is a fruit.
Yes, and the berry is a fruit. So the berry has 2 seedlings ndani kwa kawaida. So when we do pulping, ama hiyo anasema pale tukisiaga, tuna separate hizo mbili, alafu ndio tunaosha. Hizo ndio tunaitanga parchment. So hiyo ndio tunakausha pale. Ukienda kwa wale wa Kikuyu ama wa Meru ama Waembu wanazitanga menada, si ndio? But we call basically it's drying tables. So that is parchment. There is this other process. And I was saying about it's a berry or a fruit because of this. There is another process that has not been used very much in Kenya called natural processing of coffee. Natural processing of coffee is whereby you get the whole berry. Now you understand why I was asking that one, whether it's a berry or a fruit. You take the whole berry with its skin. You do the normal grading like you do you harvest the red ripe cherries. Mnafanya sorting, grading vizuri ni kama unaenda kwa pulping station, lakini tu ukifika pale kwa kuweka kwa hopper, you skip, unaenda straight kwa drying beds. So you don't take it through the separation of the 2 beans ambazo ziko ndani. So inaenda ikiwa a whole fruit ama a whole berry, inaenda kwa drying bed. So that is natural processing. Kenya has not been doing that very much, but other countries have done that for years and years. It's the oldest method of coffee processing in the world. And Ethiopia does it very well. Colombia does it very well. South American countries do that very well. Kenya has not been doing it. We have not given it attention. But fortunately, there are a lot of people now getting interested in that. So it's an alternative to wet processing. I'm not saying it is better or worse. I'm saying it's an alternative. And yes?
What's the difference in terms of quality?
Okay, in terms of quality, we will get Phyllis to explain that in a bit. But we have a small project. I want to mention that because of this. And I want to say that because it is very important. You know, we have so many dead factories in Kenya za kahawa. True or false? Collapsed, dilapidated, yani ukienda Murang'a, Kiambu, Nyeri, Meru, I think everywhere. As well, mahali pote kulikuwa kunalima kahawa, unapatanga mafactories zilibaki. So about 2-3 years ago, a factory in Nyeri, which was completely dead, came to us through say the government or whatever, through the authorities, and through a friend who was working for the government. And they were like, we need to revive our coffee factory. I'm saying that so that we can start thinking around the 2 processes. So they had a discussion. He was the CEC for agriculture in Nyeri that time. So wakulima wakaenda kwa CEC, huyu lazima ni wewe tusaidie. Kaenda wakakaa chini, wakamwambia tunataka usaidie ku revive our coffee factory. So they had a conversation. Akauliza, so what exactly do you want me to do? Wakasema unajua stima ilikatwa, maji ilikatwa, sijui the machine itself imeharibika. So wakaambiwa wafanye a tentative budget ya how much it would take to revive that factory. It was running into around 7 million. So the guy was like, okay, I don't have 7 million to revive your factory, but let me think through. So wazee nao hawakuchoka, wakakaa wakirudi kwake, but he didn't have an answer. Because he was like, you know, when you work for government, you're afraid of some things.
ni ngapi zimekufa, ukipea hawa 7 million. But hizo obligations zitakuja kwa ofisi yako aje, tumepanga laini, and you don't have a budget for that. So he could not allow himself to commit to that process because he didn't have a budget for that. So after a while, he called me and was like, "There is this group of farmers in Sumbua that they figure what we can do to revive the coffee factory." So I asked him where the coffee factory was, and we had a conversation. Fortunately, that time we had that discussion, we had somebody who was interested in buying Kenyan coffee, which is natural. So it was like, okay, so we discussed. Then we were like, okay, what if we try to do natural processing? Because natural processing, you don't need the pulping station. You don't need the electricity. You don't need actually even the water. The only thing you will need, because you're bypassing the pulping process, you will only need vitanda, the dry tables. Na hizo vitanda nyingi ukienda kwa hizo factories, if you visit a lot of those dead factories, vitanda zinakuanga tu huko chini zimemimiwa na majani. So if you call the farmers wakuje wa clear, alafu waite mafundi kadhaa majamaa the members wapige repair, vitanda zinarudi. Kuna zingine unapataka the beds were made of iron ama chuma. Kwa hivyo bado ziko tu ni clear and continuing. So we started a small pilot project. Tukaambiwa kwa mtaleta kahawa, mtaosha, mtafanya hivi alafu tuone vile itakuwa. So they brought year 1 and it turned out to be an amazing coffee. So huyo jamaa alikuwa ameitisha ya kwanza, he actually did not get what the volume he was looking for. So this guy was like, okay, this is an idea that can be used to help other factories that are dead to get back to operations. When they have the resources, now they can decide whether they want to invest on reviving the machines. So it's something that we are doing. We have the group that I'm talking about, these ones are first-time farmers. We started with them doing that. They didn't have the money to set up a pulping station, so they decided to go that route. So the idea is catching up. In Nyeri, a few cooperatives are picking it up because you don't need a lot of resources to revive the dairy factories. I'm not saying it's a big idea, but it's something to think about. So we had listed those two: wet wash process or natural process. The Kenyan coffee wet washed and natural process. I want to indulge feelings because I cannot talk about quality. I'm not a quality person. Atuambie kama kuna mtu aliuliza, what was the question? Someone asked. It is actually, you asked, what did you ask? It was you. Yes. What was the question?
What's the difference in terms of production of the quality of the final product when you do natural versus washed?
We'd rather deal with that question right now before, and then we can go to that.
Okay, maybe I can make a few comments there. And just say that previously, as Kenyans, we were very proud of our washed coffee because it was world famous. Because we did it so well until nobody else could match the same standards. Now, over time, and as you interact with the buyers who are the consumers, you realize that they don't just want one product that is monotonous. They want differentiated products, because even when the coffee is being made in the cup for drinking, it's made in different ways. So currently, it has been that worldwide there is a very huge growth in terms of consumers who are looking for what is called natural. And maybe I can add a little bit more when I'll be speaking a little later. So the natural is more fruity than the washed. The washed has a very clean taste, very dominant acidity, like citrus. But when it comes to natural, and depending on how you can manipulate the processing, you may find that you are finding different flavors developing in the coffee. And that is what the sophisticated consumer today is looking for as part of the variety. And we can talk about that a little later.
Right. So basically tunasema variety, I mean option. Me as a consumer, wewe unapenda Starteam, wewe unapenda Coke, wewe unapenda Sprite. Wewe unauzanga tu Coke. Can we give them variety? It may not necessarily be better or worse, but give the consumer variety. There is something, and then we go to.
Felix, I have a question for you. When we come again back to natural and washed coffee, as a farmer, from what I've been researching on, I think my own opinion, I think the farmer is the one who gets played here, because when you sell it as a natural, there's something called like cascara. They're getting like 2 products from one, and the farmer is still not getting the money. So I think the farmer is the one who's getting paid when you sell coffee as a natural.
Well, not really. Not really, and it's good you have brought in the issue of cascara, because in coffee there has been a lot of innovations, and these consumers are trying out different products all the time. So what cascara is the pulp of the coffee, and after you have pulped the coffee, that outer skin then is processed and dried, and it's sold as a tea. Let me use the word tea for lack of a better word, because you know that it's a pulp from coffee. It is sold as a tea, and it has been found to have some health benefits because it's got a lot of antioxidants, sugars, and so on. But that has to be done at the farm level or at the co-op level. So if a farmer is making cascara, they can then be able to come up with 2 different products, and they will sell the cascara separately and sell the natural coffee separately. Now, why natural coffee? I have been doing it with some farmers for about 6 years, and you find that because there is demand for it, you are able to get even over maybe $14, $15 per kilo of green beans, when you are only getting about $8 for the washed coffee. So as a farmer, you look at where you have the benefit. If you have a buyer for the natural and he's going to pay a good price, go ahead. A little question for cascara. Cascara, you realize you are going to take the pulp that has been dried in a cup and brew some kind of tea and then drink it. Now remember, on our farms, we are using chemicals that we are using to spray to keep away diseases and insects. So we'd have to be very careful when it comes to products like cascara. You say, for example, you are producing organic coffee, you may go ahead and make cascara that nobody will say that it has got very high limits of the residuals that are allowed in food. That would be my caution on that. Thank you.
All right. So tunaongezea software. Badala tu kuuza kahawa na tuuze. It's about innovation around this value chain. Of course, with caution, as she's saying, like you need now to have standards on that particular product. There was a
question is on licensing. When it comes to national, what are the requirements in terms of encouraging national?
Okay, licensing. There's no licensing required actually. If you're a coffee farmer, you can produce natural coffee in your farm because it is not categorized as it has. So the government has not yet thought through it. So if you decide to make your coffee natural in your farm, as long as you're a coffee farmer, you don't need any permission to do it. The problem now is where will you take it? Because maybe your production is this small, so hautachanganya na wakulima wengine kwa sababu yours is a different commodity now. So hautaipeleka kwa milling pamoja na wengine. So you now have to think independently from production, milling, and marketing, because it is not even marketed. It is marketed even in the auction, but you're trying to get a premium product. So you need to think through the whole chain until and including the market. But in terms of regulation, there is no regulation around natural coffee. If you're a farmer, you can do it in your farm. So there's no minimum, there's no. Yes. The average volume we can hear from these guys, they are doing it. Now, what is the production of sugar natural volumes?
The volume, I think this is our gentleman who can tell us better.
George,
one who knows this.
Mna produce kiasi kilo kama ngapi mwaka huu kama last year?
Around
300? 130,000. So that is cherry. 130,000 kgs of cherry. So if you were to get the number of clean coffee, 130 divided by 7 in English? It is the same conversion. Cherry, huh?
Is it the same for tomato?
It's about 20,000. 20,000 of. So divide na system kwa ni magunia kama ngapi? Wala kuna calculator. 20,000 divided by 60. 333. So basically, these guys are doing a container of exportable coffee, natural. So now, if you have and this is very good because they have organized this kind of a forum. After the I know these two guys are members of that group that is doing natural repair. So, one number, one mjadala. You're in Nyeri. Where? Karatina. Where Karatina? Kirinyaga County. Sema jina. Yes. Ukiwa hapo kweli unajua the former Mathera North, there were factories that were among those. Kahiraine, Marwari was not part of it, but hapo kuna ingine inaitwa Rueruero. You can also go to Rueruero or Kahiraine, they are doing that. Yes, natural coffee. So we proceed, and you can keep us on check on time so that we don't miss that. So, we have two. Okay, that we keep on the council.
So I wanted to inquire on the $15. I believe the stock from the free coffee. The free coffee is the one that you can from the farm or
so this is one of the most interesting conversations I've had with people, and part of the siasa za kahawa rotate around this, and we are young people, right? So we can be able to reason out. One of the biggest challenges with the Kenyan coffee market or sector is propaganda based on assumptions. So, and that brings a lot of conflict between the players, especially the farmer. Mkulima anasikia $15 because Phyllis amesema $15 of clean coffee. Amesema green ama clean coffee. You can use both. So mkulima anaenda nyumbani anachukua calculator. Anapiga hesabu 15 times 1 saizi iko 119. Zinakuja pesa ngapi? Alafu anasema na mimi nimelipwa 34. Haki ya nani watu wakawa ni wewe? So this is a misconception. I have dealt with it so many times, and I want to deal with it because in business, if you deal with misconceptions, you're not a businessman. If you're a businessman, you need to differentiate fact So green coffee, for your information, when we say green coffee in coffee trading, green coffee is kahawa ambayo imeenda through the processes, imebakisha tu stage moja ya roasting. It is ready for, na ndio there is no photo here. Wapi? No, yes, exactly. This is, no, don't look at the color. It's not about the color. It's about imefanywa primary processing, imefanywa secondary processing. So it is a bean that is ready for roasting. We can call it green coffee or we can call it clean coffee. Clean or green. And I want to say this here. 1 kg of what a farmer produces, ambayo ni cherry, because the farmers are paid on cherry, sindio? 1 kg of that is made of how many kgs from the farmers? 7. That is the standard. So if a farmer is paid 100 shillings per kg of cherry, kama zile nimesikia Udhaya, a lot of them were paid about 100 and 100 plus. How much are we paying for that farmer for green coffee? 700. But wakulima don't go through that process ya kufika that wao wanasemanga tulipo 100 wakauza $15. So vita inaanza. So it is about, when we talk about the $15 she's talking about, it is about that, not what the farmer produces. Because there's a lot of, there's value addition that has gone through the process and conversions. So 7 kgs of the farmer make 1 kg of that. Sasa ukifanya hesabu yako ya $15 against whatever, now you can start the conversation around whether it's fair or not. That is now, but at least base it on facts. And when she says $15, that is a premium market. That is a premium. It is not an everyday occurrence. That is why she said you have to have created a very good marketing system and all that for you to be able to maintain that kind of a client. So now you can now do your math. Alafu tuambie kama ina make sense.
My question is, in terms of pricing,
yes,
is there a difference between the wet wash and the natural?
Yes. Whether there's a difference between wet wash and natural, it's about the client. Interestingly, if you take natural processed coffee to the auctions, if you know coffee auction hapa, it sells very poorly locally. It sells very poorly, actually poorer than washed. But if you take it to in the international market through a specific client, you actually earn more than washed. So it's about packaging, it's about marketing, packaging, and the relationship you build with your buyers. So it's like what is appreciated here is not appreciated here. So if you get the people who are appreciating natural coffee, they are willing to pay more. If you don't find them, because it is not very common, you will burn your fingers. So we can proceed. The next one is after we are done with secondary processing. Primary processing we have done with that quite intensively. We go to secondary processing. Secondary processing wakati tunachukua parchment. Ile sasa yule alituambia pale, kisha kauka, tunapeleka kwa mill ili watoe husk. Sasa inakuwa at that level it is a bean, At that level it's a bean, so we are removing the husk so that we can now have clean coffee or green coffee. A husk ni kale kitu kama kutoa ile ngozi ya kadogo kama kufanya unga ikuwe ya grade 1, ikuwe ya mahindi. We just remove that, and once we are done with removing the husk, which is now milling, we have clean coffee or green coffee, and that is, it's a mega infrastructure. I think in Kenya we have like how many? Not more than 15 actually. Quite a number. So yeah, capacity, but they are huge investments and intensive operations for the mills. So like you will find them distributed. So that is dry milling. So we look at the opportunities in the dry mills. Apart from the infrastructure, what else can we do within that infrastructure? Then after that, we have quality assurance, where Madam Phyllis is the expert, but we look at the opportunities around that. Then marketing, she will look at that for both local and international. And then logistics, it is part of marketing, but I decided to break it down lower. And then, of course, distribution. She will be dealing with that in her session. But I want us to look at the specific opportunities in all those categories that we have looked at, and then we can see how do we fit in those ones. Can you go to the next slide? So, of course, this one we say seed propagation opportunities is research and propagation. So that is an area. If you think there is a way you can work around seed propagation, the opportunities are around research and actual propagation.
I'm wondering if it's related to the for each to have a state autonomy, is there a regulation around it?
Yes, there is a regulation around it.
What would be the biggest challenge in someone who has an interest in research and propagating the seed itself?
I think it's about certifications. Because of course when you say you're propagating seed, that's very sensitive because unaweza kuzia vitu ambazo sio mbegu. So we need a standard that we say for in public interest, so that the seed we can say actually the seeds you're selling to us meet the standards that are required. So I think the biggest challenge will not even be on licensing and all that. It will be on that process of proving that you're able to propagate the varieties of the seeds. Because now that means the people from all departments, you Kenya Plants, Health, and whatever, they will have to come and check, follow up. But if you know that process, you know, like if you are an expert in that area, you know the stages that you need to follow for them to say, we actually certify that this is a qualified seed, whatever seed propagation center. So it's about the hard part of proving that you can be able to do it.
I think I'm seeing a relation with even other things like maize,
Mhm.
beans, and others.
Yes.
Where you can't fully rely on the government.
Yes.
Because we're still getting seeds that are not of assured quality.
Yes.
Again, if someone starts their own private investment in this seed propagation, I don't think they would want to start something that will fail.
Yes.
So that is where my interest would be to answer the question of why only government? Who tells us government is the only one? I know the regulations have to be set.
Yes.
But who would be the players in that industry to say that we cannot assure private, because private, of course, will be regulated. Yeah.
We want you to be the first one. you know, I'm saying that not not as a joke. There is a time when this is a Mahindi. There was only one company. You know what Kenya Seeds Company. It was only. How many do we have now? How many do we have? You're trying to go to There is a time we only had one company that was propagating tomato seedlings. There's a project we're doing in Ukambani with some Chinese propagating some horticultural seeds, and we are doing it in a government farm. You know, CARO now, they call it CARO, Kenya Agricultural Research Institute. So they realized at some point that the government may be willing, but they do not have the capacity or the resources to do a lot of research on seedlings. So what they did is they kind of opened it up to other private players to come and fill in the gaps that they were not able to fill. And you know, government is not a business entity, so it's not about, they're not driven by profits. They're driven by, public interest. So sometimes they're not able to meet the demand. But then you realize, because of lack of interest from private players in a certain field, nobody wants to touch it. So the government remains the only player. I actually think the conversation is ongoing around seed propagation. There's a guy in Italy. I don't know how far he has gone with that. But he was at a level he was allowed to sell some seedlings. And he's actually not even at an institution. He was just a guy who was very, number one, vocal. Like, we need seedlings, we cannot get seedlings from you. And number two, they need how to make them. So I think now he's able to sell a few seedlings. He's of course still regulated, not licensed, but he's doing some seed propagation of coffee around Kitale. Because they could ask for orders zinakaa 3, 4, 5 years. Na wakulima bado wanaitisha. So it's a matter of if you want to venture into that, of course it will be tough, but it's an opening that needs a lot of tapping. I know Kenya, there's a time we were suppliers of seedlings in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, I think in the region. Nowadays, hata wakulima wetu hatuwatoshelezi. So it's a challenge you can take up. It is not going to be easy. Production, these are the opportunities in that. We have nursery establishment. Once now we have, what is your name, lady? What's? Gladwell Kimaita. Now that we have Gladwell Kimaita propagating seeds, tutakuwa tunaenda kwa duka yake, sisi tunanunua mbegu, tunaenda tunaanzisha nurseries. So these are now what when we're saying opportunities in the value chain, it is like a chain. This leads to this. So if you were to get seedlings from Kimaita or from Kenya Coffee Research Institute, that is already now we can be able to establish nurseries. And we still have shortages in terms of seedlings in the country. So, a lot of farmers are asking for seedlings and they cannot get them. So if you're able to lobby to get the seedlings, you can be able to start nurseries. And I think it's a very good business. So you can look at it from that angle. And for a nursery, a coffee nursery in Kenya, what do we require? What do we require for you to establish a coffee nursery in Kenya? Of course, apart from land and water and the infrastructure. You need a license. From who? From CRF. How are the coffee, whatever? CRF will give you a license for you to operate a licensed coffee nursery. So that is an opportunity you can pick up and look at that. Yes? The procedure of applying for the license from CRF, I don't have an idea. Maybe you do? Okay. So the easiest would be you go to Coffee Board and you say you want to start a coffee nursery. And I think it was brought down to the county government. I think it is part of the default state unit, so you need to go to the county government, Department of Agriculture, and say you want to start a coffee nursery. They will guide you. Actually, it is very simple. Because there's a time all licenses were being issued from Nairobi, but then they were devolved. So that license is issued at the county level. So you're from here, and I'm Ministry of Agriculture, you want that. Once we have established the seedlings, we of course go to marketing of seedlings. Where utakuwa una propagate, tupewe jamaa kazi ya kuzitangaza kwa mtandao wake. Si yako na followers. Yeah, we are produce seedlings. We are tuuzia mbegu. Wewe ukaenda ukafanya germination, si ndio? Sasa yeye ana kazi kupost tu kwa mtandao. Kwa mtandao kusema kuna mbegu hapa za kahawa nzuri sana, zetu ni hybrid, si kama zile zingine and stuff like that. So marketing of seedlings. Because once you germinate, ukitengeneza seedlings, hauko unatengeneza ukae nazo. Ulikuwa unatengeneza ziende kwa soko. So maybe you're not even a good marketer, but you can have someone else who can be able to push that, or you can actually do that yourself. Then of course, transplanting services. Huyu mkulima amesema anataka sasa mbegu. Huyu jamaa amepata order. You know, like for me, I like looking at a value chain from a practical, simple but practical whatever. Yeah? Huyu ametumia mbegu, wewe umetengeneza nursery kwako, huyu ameziweka kwa mtandao. These lady orders. Alright? Si ameona kwa huyo. Kwa sasa nyinyi kwa your own mechanism unakulanga sumni kwa whatever. Then huyu akona mbegu lakini anaishi Nairobi. Na shamba yake iko wapi? Bishaki. Sasa anashindwa na nani atanipandia juu hata sijui spacing. What is the spacing for planting coffee? For example, let us say Royal 11. How many know the spacing for planting coffee? Royal 11. 6 by 6?
I think I know. 7 by 7.
7 by 7. So 6 by 6, 7 by 7. Royal 11.
Normally, 9 by 9.
9 by 9. Na tuko kwa room moja tu. No, nimesema rule 11. I have specified rule 11. 7 by 7. So we have 6 by 6, 9 by 9, 7 by 7. What is the standard? 7 by 7. 6 by 6. You find out about that. But that basically tells you, this lady is like us. Hata yeye hajui zinafaa kupandwa namna gani. So yule atakuwa anajua, yeye ndio atapewa kazi ya kukuja kufanya nini? Transplanting. There is a difference on spacing on varieties. Rule 11 and SL varieties. I don't want to get into that conversation because I know I may not even know hata mimi sijui. Mimi nikitaka kupanda nitapigia mtu simu akuja nipande. I know there's that confusion of 7 by 7 or 6 by. There's a scientific formula about how, but they keep changing. That is part of the challenge. But there are a lot of people who are looking for, especially when you are establishing new farms like these guys are doing. I think you are a transplanter. You provide that service. They have a nursery, and they have new farmers who are adopting coffee farming. So vijana wa hiyo area ndio wanaenda kusaidia kina mama. This is how we plant. Then of course farm management. This is sasa kahawa iko kwa shamba. How do we manage that at the farm level? There is pruning services, spraying, fertilizer, and input application. And then of course there's another business opportunity or opportunity of supplying those inputs to the farmers. So unaweza angalia wewe sasa hapa wewe ndio unaangalia where is my interest? Kwa hii biashara ni wapi naweza? Because you cannot do everything. That's a fact. You cannot do everything. But kuna mahali unaangalia unaona hapa I think I can be able to penetrate with this. I can run with this. Phyllis, we can go to the next slide. I want to finish with. So primary processing, washed. There is opportunities in, of course, harvesting. Kuna hapo wanafanya vibarua za harvesting na kuna experts ambao wanajua harvesting. Sio kila mtu utamwambia aingie kwa shamba aanze kuvuna. Kuna sorting. Of course, if you work with our lady from that corner, there is pulping, washing, and drying of parchment sorting. So the lady from Embu, for her process here ya wet washed, that is what she is benefiting from because she is able to understand the various stages and processes in that level. Then of course natural process, there is management of natural and dried coffee. For example, I think this guy may become a consultant with these guys. So wao wako na experience sasa. Mnaweza warushia transport, wakuja wawasaidie kuestablish. Na nyinyi mkielewa mwende Karatina, mwende Nakuru. So there are opportunities around that. Management of natural drying and sorting and the whole process. Then we can processing, this is mill operation skills. Kwa hizo visiagi vya kahawa. Funny enough, there is no school that teaches mill operations as a coffee mill. So basically, it's a very traditional system. It operates on apprenticeship. Wewe unapatana na beste yako, anaenda na kuintroduce kwa huyo jamaa anakwenda kwa mill, mnakaa na yeye, unaelewa kusiaga, grade, and it's a very technical process, but there's no school that teaches that. So all of the people who are working in coffee mills, either started as a groundsman, hapo akwe kwa hiyo, lakini akakuwa interested na hiki machine. So akaanza kuona anaambiwa songesha hii kidogo, it is through apprenticeship. So if you are interested in very mechanical processes, you can start looking for people who work in coffee mills and maybe get an opportunity to start understanding how that whole system works. I know there's a lady here who works in a coffee mill. So unaweza anza kumpigia simu aone kama anaweza kuintroduce kwa huyo jamaa. Saa hizi unajua hata yeye introducewa, so sio ati akona degree, hata yeye it is apprenticeship. So there's an opportunity around that, and it is on hands-on. Then I think we can go to the next one, and that is where Phyllis comes in. Not unless there are questions. I want to wind it up there.
Kwa hiyo process ya natural.
Yes. inapelekango kwa mill tu ya kawaida, lakini instead of using the normal mill we use ile ya kumill mbuni. So kuna kwanga na ile ya kumill mbuni na hii ingine. So hii natural coffee inapelekango kwa mill ya mbuni, and then you decide whether you want to do the normal grading or you want it whatever. So utapeleka tu kwa mill. So hiyo mill itaanza process mbali kidogo, inatoanga kile kikawakia juu, alafu sasa inabaki na the two pins, alafu sasa inatoa the husk again, so that you can get clean coffee. Yes. I want us to wind up and what time is it? Are we good on time?
Who are these buyers of the natural drive?
Who are the buyers of natural coffee? A lot of people are interested in natural coffee, so it's about, of course, as we said, most of the coffee we consume about 5% of the Kenyan coffee. 95% of it is exported. So mostly it will be in the international market and mostly in the specialty coffee market. Specialty coffee segment is wale watu wanataka kahawa ambayo sio ya kawaida sana. Ni kama watu wanakunywa kuna whisky imekoroga saa hii na kuna ile ya 9 years, 12 years na so it is basically the same, like high-end consumers of coffee. That's it and done. Thank you very much for your time. I want to help us stand up, all of us. Tusimameni. We can stretch a bit for sitting down, and thank you for your attention. It doesn't come every day. And I want us to stretch a bit before Phyllis comes, and she will be taking over from there. I cannot see anybody from there. You can give us something to stretch. You got after the chat. All right. Okay, thank you very much. We can have our seats. And Phyllis? So I understand we don't want to start the next session immediately because in 5 minutes we may have tea. So any question arising, and so that we can address the questions before the 5 minutes, and then we go for a break, then we come back. So we have one here, second, third, fourth, and then I come to fifth.
So the question is, we have different varieties of coffee.
Yes.
But I was born in a place where coffee is grown, and there's factories. Most factories are not operating because maybe of different reasons. How are you going to make sure that those factories are going to gain back status, and that if there's a way that you can keep the coffee beans that you buy from the farmers just at the price of something? Because you might find maybe in the place where I come from, a coffee bean, a kg is just for 60 bob. If you go to Oda, it is 100.
So where are you from?
I'm from Taita
Taveta. So number one, I love being sincere. There's nothing I can do. Maybe you will be I cannot give you any assurances of what we can do to revive the factories that are dead at your end. I'm a private player. I can only have a conversation just the same way you're interested, I'm interested, we can have a conversation around that. But I don't think I have the capacity to give you an assurance. But Phyllis wants to chip into that.
I'm happy to hear that there is somebody from that region, Taita, because I have had an interest in that area for some time. And there is a time, maybe about 8, 9, 10 years ago, I was in touch with a manager of a cooperative there, and they were actually struggling. And I know that even today there is some little coffee, but because even what is paid for that coffee by the marketer who comes and collects the coffee from there is very little, I'm sure it does not motivate the farmers. I have had an interest. I have shared that information with one or two importers who might be interested in what we call direct trade, trying to help communities to be able to rehabilitate and come up. And maybe I don't mind having your contact, because soon, when he comes to Kenya, we may just call you and then we just come and see what is happening there.
Can you give them a clap? We are providing solutions, hapa tu, hapa kwa. So you can actually go and write down. We are going to her.
So mine was not really a question, but like what they've done,
Yes.
like it's good to have contacts. Like I don't know how, starting with the organizing, I don't know how you're going to do about. I think it's part of the feedback. I don't know, because you say it's someone from the mill,
Yes.
and I'm interested in that person from the mill.
Let us get that response from the responses. How will you see them?
I suppose the best way is, the reason why you're here essentially is to network. People are raising their hands and asking questions. Keep an eye, talk to people as they're interacting. But more importantly, there's a list that we pass through to allow people's contacts. If we're able to support them, we can support you.
Okay, so basically there is a possibility we may have a database. I don't like saying we will, because I am not the one creating it. But we are throwing that to your team, maybe some form of communication group or something, a WhatsApp group, suggestions. We don't know, but you can pick it up from them, and then they can give us a direction on where we go with that. The next one was here.
I have two questions. First of all, what is attachment in primary processing? And the second question is, during pruning, how tall would be the coffee plant, and what's the method of pruning the coffee?
So I'll start with parchment, and then I will throw the other one to Phyllis. Parchment is, tulisema kahawa inakuanga ni tunda like this, na ndani iko na two beans. So when you take it to a pulping station, kama whatever, like you remove the skin, you break it into two inside. Sasa ndani na kutanga there are two beans. Those beans, yule madam ataosha ili atoe basically kutoa mucilage ama ni kama juu matunda iko na sukari. After she washes, ataipeleka ikauke. So the beans will dry. When they are dry, that is what we call parchment. Na hiyo parchment ndio tunachukua tunapeleka kwa dry mill kwa sababu inakuanga na kahasa. Actually, we should have brought some coffee, whatever, with us, like from every state. Ako kahas ni kama kale kama hili, not comparable, but there is a cover. So once we remove that cover, a husk, it becomes clean coffee. Before we remove the husk, it is parchment. So in terms of how tall or how pruning is done, I want to ask Phyllis, can you help us with that pruning?
I would rather we engage the farmers. We
Uh-huh.
have farmers in this group.
Yes.
There are some from Embu.
Yes.
There are others from Ilongori. Steve, would you like to?
Who is an expert? Who is a pruning expert here? Ama mtu akona, aha, we have an expert here. Good.
Okay, in the process of pruning, maximum 40 branches, which should carry 2 pairs 40, so ni 20 kwenda juu. Alafu pruning, a branch, kuna branch mbili, si ziko mbili? Moja inaenda hivi, hiyo inaitwa, yenye inatoka iko ya kwanza inaitwa primary branch. Then hii nyingine inatokelezea, kwa hiyo ni secondary. So one primary branch should carry 2, nikumbushe? Ni mbili, 2 secondary, but maximum should be 6 or minimum 2.
All right. Is it on the same line? Okay, let's hear.
On pruning also, designing about pruning, does it concern about single stem or double stem?
Both the single stem, both the single and the multiple stems, pruning should apply. Because prune ni zile zinatokelezea hata extra secondary branches.
Alright. Sasa wewe na yule tutakutana na there was a hand up here. Let me just try that. Oh.
The lady is asking a question about pruning. We have some demo sites around some of the counties. One very good one is in Embu. We're trying to do one in Kiambu. So this thing is really about being hands-on. It's very difficult for someone to explain to you that you need to be hands-on. So you can talk to me at some point. I can give you directions on where to have this kind of trainings.
Practical hands-on training. Directions iko hapo. So utachukua ya yule na ya huyu. Then we come to
Okay, I'm just a trainer. Yeah, from Nyeri County. And my question goes on that. I'm very honest. How could it go vizuri? I'm very honest. Who could it go vizuri? In terms of the licensing of a nursery. Because for us, sisi tutaendea na how come. So basically we don't have somewhere we can go for one. So can you give me a good direction or a person who is going to direct me on an easier way of getting that license? And then I have another question. I can see the banners of Starteam and also the youth enterprise banner. What is the connection between the two? Can we get funding? Because we are young people and funding is a problem.
Right, thank you very much. I address the licensing part and then we go back to the connection between Starteams and youth enterprise fund. Okay, get this number. Please check that. All right. 0720-302-843. Upigie simu kumwambia unataka license ya nursery na nisemi ya kupea namba. Sasa. Hapo hapo. Na kwa Nyeri town. Kama uko hapo Nyeri upigie muulize uko wapi? Wewe mwambie unataka kuanzisha nursery.
Nataka usaidizi zingine za
Aha, ya huyu pia uchukue, you will also contribute to that. So hiyo nursery tunataka kuiona.
Connection and Youth Fund Enterprise is somebody who's going to come and give a presentation. So we're working in partnership now.
So you will get more details on the connection as they do the presentation. Time is good. I think we can break for tea and then we come back. Is it funny? Ama inaweza moja. Haya, tuchukue ya mwisho alafu we go.
Sasa ukitaka kuji ya kahawa yako umeshika kadhaa unanunulia unafanya ile process na export na mali serikali imeingia.
The answer is yes, and Phyllis will address that in the next session. The answer is yes. Phyllis is actually coming to that in the next session. So your challenge mtajadiliana na Phyllis muone. Thank you. We can break for tea. I don't know where we are going for.
Like 1 minute. Yes.
Morning. Okay, so go ahead. Order in the house, we are still...
Jina langu ni Ezekaya. Mimi ni mhandisi wa maji. And the question I have is about the coffee production. You see, ikiwa kwa shamba, mostly except from the estates, the small-scale farmers, nimeobserve na nimeona huwa like the coffee is not much irrigated, as it wanna prefer from the rainfall gauge. So I was asking, is there any way that huwa inasaidia aje with the irrigation, being na hii sekta yangu as a water engineer?
So we have a water engineer in the house, and he does not understand why you don't use the services as farms. So he's asking, what are particular? Huh? Go ahead.
Ideally, when you irrigate, coffee is supposed to kujitafutia, inafaa ukipanda unafaa kwenda kujitafutie maji, the roots and everything in the chini. It has both roots, both taproot and fibrous. So when you come and do water kidogo, like it needs a lot of water for one. If you come to kidogo, it will start going up. So it will have something called root dieback. So that's why we discourage to do irrigation in coffee.
Okay, so is it? Do you feel comfortable with that answer? So I don't have an answer actually, but I know
that man I can help him. He knows what to find.
So get that connection?
Yes.
Because of and of course I understand what you're saying. It is water intensive, so you don't want to introduce something and then you stop. But I think there are other opportunities because I know that the nurseries would definitely need water. You know, the nurseries will definitely need water. The pulping stations will definitely need water for it's just a matter of looking at it from a wider angle. Don't look at it from irrigate your coffee. Which other parts of the coffee value chain needs water? The pulping station needs water. The nurseries need water. I know some farmers do irrigation in coffee, but I know it may not be cost effective. So it's a matter of is it cost effective or not? But it's something that now that you have this young man here, you can be able to connect with him, and then that conversation can continue.
Yeah, I think you're ready for something to drink. That area is a bit small, so I think we'll go in. There's a team here. Is it from the area or from Embu? The ones who are sitting somewhere around here. Embu. Let's start with the Embu people. Let's just walk out and take our snacks. We come back and then we go in groups of whatever country we came from. So we can start with you. And in the meantime, you can be interacting or engaging.
I'll get your contact.